Hi guys, and welcome back. Today I am going to be working on a new tarot card, and while I work on that, I want to talk a bit about the fear of starting a larger project. Specifically, the fear that comes from feeling like you are unprepared for it. This is something that I have struggled with so many times in the past, and over time, over different projects that I have either completed or didn't even start, I have learned certain things that help me to be able to work through this immobilizing fear of the imperfect and the unplanned so that I can move on and actually have something to show, something that I can create. And I personally, I love creating larger projects. There is just something so incredibly satisfying about being able to have a body of work that comes together and creates something bigger and special because they're all interconnected and they create something more than the individual pieces. But it also comes with a lot of new hurdles that you have to figure out that aren't really present when you're working on single artwork pieces. When you're working on a painting by painting basis, you can just focus on that one thing and what does it need to achieve. So there are a lot of things that can be really daunting about moving on into something that is going to take a lot of commitment and a lot of time and a lot of artwork. And it's scary to feel unprepared and to feel like you might start and then regret decisions that you've made. So let's talk about it. Let's talk a bit about some of the things that I've done that can help with that feeling, that can help you to move into the realm of actually creating it rather than being in that pre-planning phase for eternity. And the print of this piece, The Hanged Woman, is the exclusive print over on Patreon. So if you'd like to get a print of her, make sure to go sign up by the end of October. So that's October 31st. And she will eventually be part of the entire deck that will hopefully be coming out next year. But this is the only way to get her as a full-sized print. And again, there's a link down in the description that'll take you over to my Patreon. One thing that I try to remind myself at the beginning is that it's always better to create something that's imperfect or something that I need to change and adapt as I work on it than it is to not create anything because I can't commit to it being correct. It's okay if I don't have all of the answers completely nailed down at the very beginning. Some things can be figured out, and I need to be able to allow myself to take that leap into the realm of creating something that I may not necessarily be able to see clearly how everything's going to come together. If I can just jump into that with a certain amount of stuff planned out, I need to trust myself to be able to create something that I'll be excited and proud of and want to continue working on it. It's also very helpful for me to remind myself at the beginning is that as I work on large projects or bodies of work, there has always been a point where I feel sick of working on it, or I feel that I've gone the wrong decision, or I am making it incorrectly. And I always have to work through that feeling and bring myself back into the excitement that I first had at the beginning and that clarity that in some ways I had the clarity of wanting to create this project. So reminding myself that at the beginning helps me to know that there are going to be things that I can't even possibly think of at the beginning that I'm going to have to work out. So I can't pre-plan everything. I can't figure it all out. And it's okay if things will be frustrating at some point, but I have to be okay with that if I want to have a project that actually sees the light of day. So the first step to doing a big project is obviously figuring out what that big project is. And there is endless amount of things that you could be doing for your larger project. It could be creating a series of paintings, say 3 or 5, that fit together, that either tell a story or have common motifs throughout them. Or it could be something like what I'm doing, which I'm working on today, which is a tarot deck. So that's, I believe there's 78 cards in it. So there's a set amount of cards. Each card has a meaning and a purpose. And I have that already settled and already figured out. It it could be something like an Inktober book that I've done in the past, or a card game, or so many things, coloring books. Okay, I don't need to name all the projects you could be doing, but it's really just the sky's the limit for what you could be planning. And that's one of the reasons why I love larger projects, is that they can just really put so much more out there, so much bigger than the sum of each individual part. Each small piece, each individual piece that I do can be something that I love, but maybe imperfect. But once I create that entirety of the project, it just is so much bigger and more. And I love that. I love the opportunity to tell more and to create more and to put something out there that has a little bit more impact. But anyways, the first thing that you do is you plan what is your project. What's the thing that you are excited about doing? And then you need to figure out what the parameters are. How many pieces do you need? What purpose does this project fulfill? So say you wanted to do a coloring book, that purpose is that it needs to be able to be colored by somebody else. So that would dictate how you're going to create the project. It's going to be line art and probably black and white, black with the negative space around it. I'm doing my tarot deck, so I know that each card needs to represent a certain meaning and a certain character for some of them. So I already actually have a lot of that already figured out for me for this current project, which is really exciting and nice actually to lean on that. But anyways, yes, figuring out what does it need to actually do. If it does something, it could be a series of paintings that needs to tell a story from one to the next, and that's the purpose, is that you want it to evoke a certain emotion through all of the pieces. And figuring that stuff out, that's where it can lead me to creating a list of the things that I have to know before I start. So there's some things that you can figure out as you move along, as you work on each piece. And then there are a lot of details that you need to figure out before you start. And that's, I think, really the core part of what can really inhibit me from starting a project, is not really knowing the limit of what can I figure out afterwards as I'm working on it. What is something that I can let go at the beginning? Even if I don't have a perfectly clear idea, I'll be able to figure it out as I work through it. And what are the things that I need to know from the very beginning? And separating those out can really simplify the process so that you can have a very clear idea. You know exactly what does need to be nailed down. And then everything else can be let go, which is a huge relief. So like for my project, my tarot deck, I know that each card is going to have a purpose and a meaning assigned to it. So I can address how am I going to portray each individual card when I get to that card. But because I want the entire deck to have cohesion with the way that it looks, with the style and the artwork, they need to have certain things figured out before I start. So I need to figure out what medium am I going to use so that all of the cards are created in that same medium. What kind of color palettes am I going to use in my pieces so that they feel like they fit together but can still be individualistic? So things like that. I can start deciding, okay, this is something that I absolutely need to know, and this is something that I can figure out as I go. The color palette is something that I've really let develop as I work on each card. So that was something that I decided I could let go. I was really stressed out about that at the very beginning, thinking that I needed to have the color palette locked down so that each one would really just fit in perfectly. But I found that it was keeping me from actually starting the project. It also made me feel very restricted on how I was going to portray different cards. So being able to let that thing go was such a relief. But knowing what medium I was going to paint it in was very important to me because I wanted and needed all of them to have that same stylistic look. And this is actually something that, if you've been around for a little while, you know that I started out in a different medium. I actually started this whole tarot deck in oil paints and then switched to digital but everything for the final project is going to eventually be digital. So that was one that I was sure at the beginning, and then I course corrected, and now it's locked in. Now it's going to be digital, and everything that I move on working on forward for the tarot deck, I know what the medium is going to be. I know right off the bat, and I can start. And that is another thing that's just lifted off that I don't have to worry about. And don't forget, this piece, The Hanged Woman, is the print for Patreon for the month of October. So if you'd like to get the print of her, make sure to sign up by October 31st. That's the only way to get her as a full-size print. Eventually, she will be, again, part of the tarot deck. But anyways, she is available there. There's the link down in the description that'll take you over there. You just have to sign up for the print here, where you'll get the print of her as well as the sticker pack that I've created for this month. And of course, I want to give a huge thank you to all of my amazing patrons over there. Thank you guys so much for your support. I can't thank you enough for that, so thank you. But that is it for today. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.